Welcome to Charlie's Bedtime Stories. In medieval England, in the plague year 1348, one family closes a wooden shutter before bed. But sleep requires much more. The air, the fire, the bedding, the body, and the soul must all be prepared for the night. This family is a careful composite built from documented practices rather than a surviving household diary. Their cottage stands in rural Dorset, where news of pestilence has sharpened every response to a draught or unfamiliar smell. From sunset to dawn, we will follow them as they bank the hearth and scent the hall with herbs. They will arrange linen and wool over straw, pray for protection, share warmth, and pass through first sleep, midnight wakefulness, and second sleep. The last daylight narrows. A hand reaches for the shutter. The shutter is made from ordinary timber, worn smooth by the hands that have closed it through many evenings. It moves across the opening and reduces the outside world to a thinning bar of light. At the hearth, another member of the household waits with a tool near the coals. Beside the family bed lie folded linen, a wool coverlet, and a cloth mattress packed firmly with straw. This is the home of a prosperous tenant farmer, prosperous at least in a relative medieval sense. The household has sturdy timber furniture, stored herbs, linen sheets, and enough wool bedding to face a cold night with some confidence. It does not have private bedrooms for every person, or a grand bed made from exotic polished wood. The main hall serves as living room, workroom, and sleeping room, depending on the hour. Tonight, its transformation is carried out with unusual care. Plague has reached southern England. The family cannot see the source of the sickness or understand it in modern terms. Like others around them, they may fear corrupted air, bodily disorder, and the spiritual dangers that accompany illness. There is no certain barrier they can place between themselves and an invisible disease. There are, however, actions they understand. They can close the shutters against damp night air. They can preserve warmth without leaving behind a dangerous open blaze. They can sweeten the room with dried plants whose strong scent suggests cleaner air. They can remake the straw bedding, spread valued linen, and pull wool across several bodies at once. They can place a scented sachet near a pillow. And they can pray. None of this guarantees safety. Its importance lies partly elsewhere. Each action turns fear into work that can be completed by hand. The room changes as the tasks accumulate. A shared daytime hall becomes a smaller nighttime enclosure. The bed is not prepared for one isolated sleeper. The whole household is preparing one environment in which people, fire, fabric, scent, and prayer will remain close together. Sleeping in a plague year begins long before anyone lies down. It begins with making the cottage feel governable. The shutter continues toward its frame. What the household hopes to exclude is not only darkness, but the damp and troubling air believed to travel with it. The wooden edge meets the frame with a flat, familiar sound. A simple latch settles into place. Outside noises become duller, and the last clear line of evening disappears from the hall. To the family, closing the shutter helps separate the tended atmosphere within from the uncertain atmosphere beyond. Night air, especially when cold or damp, could be regarded with suspicion. Warmth and dryness offered order. The household does not know how plague spreads, But it does know that bodies feel vulnerable when chilled, and that foul or troubling air has long been associated with sickness. The hand remains on the shutter for a moment, checking that it sits firmly against the opening. This boundary is modest. Timber boards cannot make the cottage medically safe, and the family would not think about infection in modern scientific terms. Yet shutting the opening is still practical within the world they know. It reduces the draft. It keeps more of the hearth's warmth inside. It limits the entry of wet air and gives the room a climate that can be watched, adjusted, and judged by the senses. There are still small gaps around the boards. Medieval carpentry does not create a perfectly sealed wall. A thin movement of air can find its way through, carrying the smell of earth and the cold of evening. But the broad opening is covered, and that matters. The room immediately feels closer. People hear one another more clearly. Cloth shifting against straw sounds louder. The ordinary smells of wool, timber, old smoke, and human occupation gather rather than disperse. Soon, herbs will alter them. The change is visible as well. A few moments ago, fading daylight reached across the hall, dividing familiar objects into bright and shadowed surfaces. Now the hearth supplies almost all the useful light. The bed, folded cloth, and faces nearest the fire remain clear enough to see. The corners retreat. The cottage has not become silent or empty, but its boundaries feel nearer. Other shutters are secured in the same practiced way. The work requires no speech. One person presses a board into place while another checks the latch. The younger members of the household remain near the bedding or hearth, where the light can still reach them. Closing the shutters does more than exclude a draught. It commits the household to share in the same air for the night. Whatever warmth is kept will be kept together. Whatever scents are added will be breathed together. Every movement near the fire and every adjustment of the bedding will affect the room as a whole. Modern privacy often begins by closing a door behind one person. Here, closing the shutters does almost the opposite. It encloses everyone together. The outdoor world is reduced, while the shared world of the hall becomes more immediate. The family's first protection for sleep is not at the pillow. It is the cottage boundary itself. A small indoor climate they believe they can tend. With the daylight gone, attention turns toward the red light at the center of the room. A household member draws pale ash over the brightest coals. The exposed glow narrows into red seams, then smaller points beneath the grey. A flame that moved visibly through the evening is reduced until the hearth appears almost inactive. That appearance is the skill. An open blaze would consume fuel and demand attention. It could throw too much heat toward the sleeping places and remain too lively for an unattended room. Yet a hearth allowed to die completely would leave the hall colder and require greater effort later. The night fire must endure without behaving as though it still has important public business. Ash provides the answer. It covers the coals, slows them, and holds their heat beneath a surface that looks cool. The family has probably performed this task on ordinary nights, but pestilence gives its purpose added weight. Warm, drier air feels preferable to chilling dampness. A surviving ember also offers continuity during the expected wakeful interval between two sleeps. The person tending the hearth does not sweep everything into a perfect shape. This is practical work. Ash clings to the tool and rises in a faint powder before settling again. Beneath it, the coals retain the evening's heat. Some pieces are drawn together before being covered. A scattered coal loses its heat more quickly. A compact bed of coals shares warmth. The tool moves carefully through the hearth with a low scraping sound. Red appears, then vanishes beneath another veil of ash. A hand held at a sensible distance can still feel the warmth. Near the hearth, the floor and nearby objects have absorbed some of it. Farther away, near the shuttered walls, the night presses more firmly against timber and plaster. The sleeping places are arranged to benefit from the center without lying so close that sparks or excessive heat become a danger. The room now has two kinds of darkness. Beyond the shutters lies the full, ungoverned night. Inside, darkness is interrupted by the hidden red of the banked hearth. The household judges the fire by habit rather than measurement. Too much exposed glow means it has not been covered enough. No trace of warmth may mean the coals have been smothered too thoroughly. The desired result lies in a narrow domestic middle. Enough life to last, little enough activity to leave alone. This judgment belongs to the body. A face feels the fire's reach. A hand senses heat through the tool. The color beneath the ash shows whether the coals are still living. There is no dial to consult and no exact temperature to maintain. Experience is the household instrument. It is a useful reminder that the best medieval nighttime fire is not necessarily an impressive one. No one needs a heroic blaze. The excellent fire looks almost dead and quietly refuses to be so. Once the ash is settled, the tool is placed within reach. The hearth will not be forgotten. During the middle of the night, someone may return, expose a little red, and make certain that warmth remains. The last open flame contracts and disappears. With it goes the liveliest movement in the room. Shadows cease their quick motion over the walls. The family can now approach the sleeping places without leaving a tall fire behind them. For the moment, the visible element has been managed. Fire has been made small, durable, and safe enough for sleep. But warmth cannot answer every fear. If sickness is believed to travel through corrupted air, then the air itself must be addressed. A bundle of dried meadowsweet is brought toward the hearth. The dried meadowsweet is light in the hand. Its leaves and flowers have lost the softness they carried when fresh, but not all their scent. As a small amount warms near the hearth, fragrance enters the familiar cottage mixture of straw, wool, timber, smoke, and ash. The change is not merely decorative. In medieval understandings of health, unpleasant or corrupted air could threaten the body. Strong and pleasing scents offered a way to correct, sweeten, or cleanse what could not be seen. During pestilence, that logic became especially compelling. If danger seemed to occupy the air, fragrance gave the household something direct to place within it. The family does not need to understand the air as a modern chemist would. They judge it with the nose, skin, and lungs. A room may feel stale, wet, smoky, sweet, sharp, warm, or wholesome. The meadowsweet announces itself through the senses. That makes the preparation feel active. The dried material is handled sparingly. A stem breaks with a slight crackle. Leaves crumble between the fingers and release their stored fragrance more strongly. A little is brought close enough to the heat to warm or smolder, sending its scent through the sleeping area. Other households, or the same household on another night, might use dried wormwood, rosemary, or lavender. These plants need not appear together in one fixed recipe. Medieval domestic practice was not standardized. Availability, custom, and preference all mattered. What joins these plants is their strong aroma and their use in making a room smell more agreeable and, in period belief, better guarded against harmful air. Rosemary would offer a sharper, greener note. Lavender would be familiar in a different way. Wormwood could bring a more bitter character. Meadowsweet has its own sweetness, and here meadowsweet leads. A little smoke and scent move outward from the hearth. They reach the bed, the hanging cloth, and the folded wool. They mingle with the sharper smell of ash. A member of the family may move the herbs or disturb the air with a hand, encouraging the fragrance through the space where bodies will soon lie. The closed shutters make the result easier to notice. Scent does not immediately vanish into the evening. It gathers inside the hall, just as warmth does. The same enclosure that excludes the suspicious night air allows the family's chosen fragrance to remain. Too much smoke would not improve the evening. The purpose is not to fill the hall until everyone coughs. The preparation is controlled, just as the fire is controlled. A small amount is enough to alter the room. This answer to an invisible threat is deeply physical. Dried stems can be gathered, leaves can be crumbled, fragrance can be noticed. Without any formal declaration, the household can recognize that the air now smells different from the air before. The scent also marks time. It belongs to the completion of evening work and the beginning of sleep. On another day, the hall might smell more strongly of cooking, damp garments, tools, or ordinary smoke. Tonight, the chosen herbs signal that the room is being made into a guarded sleeping place. The herbs cannot prevent plague. Their importance here is historical and human. They reveal the family's understanding of danger and its desire to replace uncertainty with a recognizable sign of readiness. The room has been shut, its warmth has been preserved, its air has been sweetened. Now the herbal scent settles toward the object that will support the family for much of the night. Beneath the smooth upper cloth lies a far less smooth arrangement of timber, woven support, and straw. One edge of the bedding is lifted. The neat surface gives way to its construction. At the bottom stands a sturdy wooden frame. Across or within it, firm support holds a cloth mattress filled with straw. This mattress is a palliasse. It is made useful not by springs or upholstered padding, but by the amount and condition of the plant material packed inside. The straw has already learned the shapes of its sleepers. It compresses where bodies most often rest and remains fuller near the edges. When the palliasse is shifted, it answers with a dry rustle. The lumps move rather than disappear. A hand can push one crowded section apart and draw more straw toward a hollow. Comfort depends on this attention. A neglected straw mattress becomes uneven, attended. One can be shaken, turned, pressed, and rearranged. The cloth cover keeps the filling from scattering across the hall, while the timber or woven support raises the sleeper above the floor. It is simple technology, but it is technology all the same. The cloth case matters as well. It must contain the straw under the repeated pressure of several bodies. A weak seam or worn place invites the filling to escape. A hand passing over the palliasse can do more than search for lumps. It can feel for damage, flatten a stubborn ridge, and make sure the sleeping surface will hold through another night. The familiar image of medieval people dropping gratefully onto a loose heap of straw is not helpful here. This family has not wandered into a barn and mistaken it for a bedroom. Its bed is built in layers, and each layer performs a task. The frame raises the sleeping surface. The support takes the weight. The palliasse yields beneath hips and shoulders. Linen will create a cleaner, smoother barrier above it. Wool will retain warmth over the sleepers. None of these materials needs to be luxurious to be valuable. The frame may creak when pressure is applied. The support beneath the mattress can give a little without behaving like a modern spring. The sleeper remains aware of the construction. Wood below, plant fiber within, woven cloth around, linen above. Nearby, a lower trundle or simpler sleeping mat can extend the household's nighttime arrangement. Not everybody must fit on the main frame, and not every place offers equal comfort. The best bed can belong to the household while still being shared. Hands work across the palliasse. One presses down while another draws the cloth tight. A ridge beneath the surface is broken apart. Straw shifts with a sound that will return whenever someone turns during the night. A mattress like this is not identical from one evening to the next. Its interior changes under use. Tonight's hollow may become tomorrow's ridge after the filling is moved. Comfort is a temporary achievement, not a quality sealed inside the mattress by its maker. The straw carries its own dry smell beneath the sweeter herbs. The scent belongs to the bed as smoke belongs to the hearth. It reminds us that the mattress is organic, changeable, and maintained. It is not a finished object to be purchased and forgotten. The family knows the bed by touch. They know which edge sags, which part remains firm, and where another body can fit if everyone moves closer. They know that comfort is produced through making, smoothing, sharing, and remaking. The bed also records the household's resources. A less well-provided sleeper might use a simpler mat or straw-filled bedding closer to the floor. This family's raised timber platform and layered cloth show relative comfort. They do not create aristocratic luxury. They create a better place for tired bodies in a shared hall. Once the straw has been redistributed, the palliasse disappears again beneath its upper layers. First comes the valued linen, cool against the hand. Then comes the thicker wool that will hold several people beneath its weight. The coarse linen is drawn over the palliasse and smoothed from one side to the other. It does not erase the straw's unevenness, but it changes the surface. Loose roughness is contained. The bed becomes ready to meet skin and sleeping clothes rather than work-stained outer garments. Linen sheets mark this household as comparatively well provided for. Fabric requires resources, care, and storage. Possessing it does not turn the cottage into an aristocratic chamber. The cloth may be thick, plainly finished, and rougher than modern bedding. Even so, it offers a valued layer between the body and the straw mattress. The weave can be felt beneath the palm. It is not the almost weightless smoothness of fine modern cotton. The threads announce themselves. A fold forms a noticeable ridge. When the cloth is pulled taut, its rougher texture remains, but the surface becomes orderly. When first spread, linen can feel cool. That quality is noticeable in a room whose main warmth comes from a banked hearth and other people. A sleeper entering the bed meets the cooler sheet first. Gradually, the fabric takes warmth from the bodies lying upon it. The wool coverlet waits folded at the foot or side of the bed. It is heavier, less yielding and more clearly insulating. When unfolded, it occupies much of the shared sleeping space. Its surface may not be perfectly smooth. It has been used, aired, folded, and pulled by many hands. The coverlet's weight is part of its usefulness. It does not merely lie over the bed as decoration. It presses close enough to hold warmed air around the sleepers. Where it hangs over an edge, the family may tuck it inward to reduce the cold entering beneath. Linen below and wool above create a small climate around the body. The straw supports, the sheet separates. The coverlet contains warmth. If several sleepers lie beneath it, each person contributes heat to the arrangement. This is middling comfort rather than magnificence. The family owns something worth protecting from dirt and damp, yet it does not enjoy the modern luxury of abundant personal space. A good sheet may be shared by bodies that turn, breathe, and jostle close together. A sturdy bed may stand in a hall where household work took place throughout the day. Material prosperity and privacy do not rise in equal steps. Someone smooths the linen with the flat of a hand. Another opens the wool until its edge reaches the places assigned to several sleepers. Nearer the hearth will be warmer. Nearer the outer wall may be colder. Position matters almost as much as fabric. The smaller sleeping place nearby receives its own lair as resources allow. A trundle, mat, or simpler palliasse can be drawn close enough to benefit from the same fire and the presence of the family. It belongs inside the household's sleeping circle, even if it does not offer the same depth of straw or breadth of wool. By now, the central bed presents an orderly surface, yet a palm pressed against it can still feel the hidden straw. The arrangement remains honest about its materials. It is comfortable because the family has paid attention, not because the underlying world has vanished beneath upholstery. These layers also show how care is distributed. One person pulls the sheet straight for another. Someone leaves room beneath the wool. A colder sleeper may be placed closer to the middle. Bed-making is already a social act. It is also a nightly negotiation with limited things. The sheet can be smoothed, but not made larger. The coverlet can be drawn toward the wall only by surrendering a little at the other edge. Warmth, cloth, and space must be shared in practical proportions. With the broad fabric settled, attention narrows. Near the head of the bed, where a face will rest and every breath will be noticed, the family places smaller objects. There is a cloth sachet filled with dried rose leaves. Nearby, perhaps for use when wanted, is a sponge dampened with vinegar. The rose leaf sachet fits easily in one hand. Its cloth is small beside the sheet and coverlet, and the dried petals inside have little weight. Yet beside the pillow, it occupies the most intimate part of the sleeping space. Earlier, meadowsweet changed the smell of the hall. This smaller object changes the air immediately around a sleeper's face. When touched or pressed, the dried rose leaves release more of their scent. The fragrance is familiar and contained. It can be brought close, set aside, or found again in darkness by reaching along the linen near the pillow. The cloth gives the fingers an easy shape to recognize. Even without light, it feels distinct from the broad sheet and the heavier wool. Its contents shift softly when turned. The object is less a piece of furnishing than a small reserve of chosen fragrance. A vinegar-dampened sponge offers a sharper sensation. Its smell cuts through the warmer herbs, ash, wool, and straw. A sleeper might hold it near the face for comfort, especially when worried about the quality of the air. It does not represent knowledge of germs or modern antiseptic practice. It belongs to the same effort to answer feared bad air with a forceful, recognizable odor. Camphor was another documented aromatic possibility, though it need not be assumed in this rural cottage. A household used what it possessed or could obtain. Tonight, rose leaves and vinegar are enough to show the principle. The scale of protection has contracted. First, the shutters defined the boundary of the cottage. Then the hearth moderated its warmth. Meadowsweet altered the atmosphere throughout the sleeping area. Now a sachet rests within inches of one person's mouth and nose. The family has moved from the whole hall to the space of a single breath. That movement offers a different kind of reassurance. A room-wide preparation depends on everyone. A sachet can remain in one hand. It gives the sleeper a small object to touch when thoughts return to illness after the flames have gone. The vinegar sponge is equally immediate. Its scent needs no explanation once it is near the nose. Sharpness itself can suggest strength. In a world where air is judged through odor, an aroma that cuts through the room's ordinary mixture can feel purposeful. The pillow is probably modest, another cloth-covered support rather than a deep modern cushion. Against it, the sachet creates a slight unevenness. A person may shift it aside or tuck it where it can be reached without searching. Nothing about the object is grand. That is part of its meaning. Faced with a danger too large to grasp, the household values something small enough to hold. The rose scent may already be faint. Dried leaves lose strength over time, yet a little pressure revives them, and memory supplies what the nose does not. The sachet signifies preparation as much as perfume. A hand places it beside the appointed pillow. The vinegar sponge remains nearby rather than pressed constantly to the face. Both objects wait. But no one will occupy this protected place in complete isolation. The pillow belongs inside a shared arrangement. Before the family lies down, there is another fact about the night to understand. Sleep itself may arrive in two portions, with a wakeful interval between them. The completed bed appears to promise one long descent into darkness. Medieval sleep, however, could follow a divided rhythm. The family may enter a first sleep after the evening preparations, wake later for an hour or two, and then settle into a second sleep that carries them toward morning. The interval is not automatically treated as a failure of rest. It belongs within the expected shape of the night. There is no need for everyone to wake at one precise moment. No clock sounds to announce that first sleep has officially ended. One person may become aware, while another remains deeply still. A younger sleeper may turn and continue sleeping. The household moves through the interval according to body's habit and need. The waking time can be used for prayer. It can provide a moment to check the hearth, expose the coals, or attend to modest household needs. It may also contain little activity at all. A person can lie awake beneath the wool, hear familiar breathing nearby, and wait for sleep to return. This pattern changes the meaning of bedtime. Lying down is not necessarily the start of one unbroken block that must remain intact until dawn. It is the entrance into first sleep. The cottage expects to have a middle, just as the bed has layers and the hearth has heat hidden beneath ash. The language of first and second sleep makes darkness feel less like one undivided stretch. Evening work leads into the first settling. Wakefulness creates a quiet interval within the night. A second settling completes it. Each portion has its own place without requiring a mechanical schedule. For a modern sleeper, waking in darkness may invite immediate arithmetic. How many hours remain? Why am I awake? Will tomorrow be ruined? The medieval household does not need to frame the experience that way. Night waking can be ordinary and usable. That does not mean every night follows a perfect pattern. Bodies have never obeyed history with complete punctuality. Cold, worry, movement, and household sounds can disturb rest. But divided sleep gives wakefulness a recognized place rather than making it an intruder. The pattern also suits the practical life of the hall. A fire banked before bed may benefit from attention later. Bedding may need to be drawn back into place. A prayer can be resumed when the room is darkest. The household can wake briefly without declaring the night finished. The family has already prepared for that interval. The tool near the hearth can uncover the coals. The rose sachet can be found by touch. A prayer can be repeated without rising. The wool can be pulled back into place when everyone settles again. First and second sleep also make the room's preparations work twice. The shutters remain closed through both. The scent lingers. The straw receives the family, releases it briefly, and receives it again. The same blessing shelters both portions. The night ahead is not a blank stretch. It has an opening, a quiet middle chamber, and a return. Before the first portion begins, several bodies must be fitted into the available warmth. The wool coverlet is pulled back. The household decides who will lie on the main bed, who will use the lower place, and who needs the warmest position near the hearth. The broad coverlet folds away from the linen. Places are assigned without a formal plan. The family knows the arrangement from other nights, though cold, age, worry, or simple preference may alter it. The central timber bed is the best sleeping platform in the hall. Several members can share it. A lower trundle, mat, or separate straw-filled bed lies near enough to receive more sleepers while preserving access to the hearth's warmth. Exact relationships and ages remain indistinct because this is a representative household, not a family recovered by name from a nightly record. What matters is the pattern. Sleep is communal. Bodies remain near relatives and familiar members of the household rather than withdrawing into private rooms. One place offers a little more warmth. Another provides easier access to the edge. A smaller body may fit where two adults would find only elbows. Someone who expects to rise during the wakeful interval may take the outer position rather than climbing over everyone later. The main bed and lower place create a modest geography of comfort. Higher, thicker bedding may be preferred, but nearness to the fire can improve a simpler place. The most desirable position depends on more than rank. Warmth, space, age, habit, and the likelihood of rising all matter. There is social meaning in the arrangement. The best bedding does not necessarily mean solitary use. It can indicate status within the household while still being shared. Comfort comes from a better frame, more substantial cloth, and a favorable place near the hearth. It does not require complete seclusion. A household sleeping together remains a household after daylight ends. Responsibility does not vanish at the edge of the bed. A person near the outside can rise without disturbing everyone. Someone nearer the center can share warmth with a colder sleeper. Bodies are arranged according to practical needs as much as personal preference. The wool is wide enough to cover several sleepers, but only if no one claims too much. A familiar negotiation begins before sleep and continues unconsciously through the night. One person pulls. Another tucks an edge beneath a shoulder. A third supplies warmth while occupying exactly the portion someone else wanted. The arrangement has inconveniences. Breathing, turning, a cold foot, and the rustle of straw become everyone's business. Yet closeness also gives reassurance. In a year of feared sickness, another body nearby is not only an obstacle, it is proof of company. There is little possibility of hiding wakefulness. If one person shifts repeatedly, others feel it through the mattress. If someone rises to tend the hearth, the loss of warmth may be noticed. Privacy is limited not only by walls, but by cloth, weight, sound, and shared air. The family's strongest source of warmth and solace is not stored in a chest or woven into the coverlet. It is the presence of other sleepers. As the first person lowers toward the cool linen, a smaller rule enters the scene. Which side of the body should meet the mattress first? A shoulder presses into the palliasse. The straw gives slightly beneath it. Medieval health guides could recommend beginning sleep on the right side. The position was thought to assist the stomach and the work of digestion. Later in the night, the sleeper might turn onto the left side. The clearest evidence for this advice comes from medical writings associated with literate or wealthier readers. We should not imagine every rural household studying a health guide beside the hearth. Written recommendations circulated unevenly. Still, similar counsel could pass into ordinary conversation and become the kind of bodily rule remembered without anyone recalling its written source. In this composite cottage, an older member might know the advice and follow it, or simply repeat it as familiar wisdom. That possibility illustrates the rule without claiming that this particular family left a record of obeying it. The action itself is modest. The sleeper begins on the right shoulder, adjusts the linen beneath the hip, and bends the knees enough for another body to fit behind. Later, perhaps, after the interval between sleeps, the position may change. The rule reveals an interest in sleep as a bodily process rather than an empty pause. Digestion continues, warmth matters, posture matters. The sleeping body remains part of the broader work of health even while consciousness withdraws. Health is being managed through position as well as air, warmth, and scent. The medieval body is not thought of as a machine separate from its surroundings. Food, sleep, temperature, posture, and the state of the air all belong to the same broad effort to preserve balance. Whether the advice reaches every bed is doubtful. Its existence still reveals the attention given to the direction of an ordinary sleeping body. In practice, the family settles according to space as much as theory. Straw and other people can overrule even the finest counsel. A sleeper who begins carefully on the right may turn when a nearby knee makes medical correctness less comfortable than compromise. The palliasse has its own opinion as well. A ridge of straw beneath one shoulder can make the other side more appealing. Advice enters the bed, but it must share authority with fabric, warmth, and several inconvenient bodies. Once the first positions have been found, the household addresses a protection considered more important than the angle of any shoulder. A hand passes above the pillow in the sign of the cross. The gesture is brief and recognizable. Fingers move over the sleeping place, marking the cross above coarse linen, a modest pillow, and the rose-leaf sachet. Bedtime prayer is not an ornamental addition to the practical work. It completes that work. Night exposes the sleeper in several ways. The waking body gives up its attention. Darkness brings uncertainty. Illness may arrive without visible warning, and frightening dreams can feel like more than meaningless pictures. The family therefore seeks protection for body and soul together. Words of prayer are spoken quietly. Protective saints may be invoked without turning the bedside into a grand ceremony. The prayers belong to domestic life. They are learned through repetition and shared by people who may differ in age and understanding. One voice can lead, others can answer or follow inwardly. A sleepy person may know the rhythm better than the full meaning of every phrase. The familiar sequence matters. It tells the household that daytime obligations are closing and the sleeping place has been entrusted to sacred care. The sound of prayer alters the hall for a moment. Earlier, the room contained the scrape of the hearth tool, the crackle of dried leaves, and the busy rustle of bed-making. Now, speech becomes measured. The actions of several people gather around remembered words. The cross above the pillow joins two kinds of history in one small space. Below the hand lies straw, cloth, and timber. The mattress has lumps, the linen has a coarse weave. The sachet contains dried petals that can be crushed between the fingers. Above these ordinary things moves a sign directed toward unseen protection. There is no sharp division between material and spiritual preparation. Closing shutters, scenting air, arranging bedding, and praying all answer vulnerability. One works through timber. Another works through fragrance. Another through wool and shared heat. Prayer addresses dangers beyond the reach of household tools. The same person who carefully checked the shutter can make the sign of the cross without sensing any contradiction. In this room, practical skill and religious trust are not rival explanations. They are parts of one preparation for a night that places the body beyond waking control. A blessing may be repeated over more than one sleeping place. The main bed, lower trundle, and nearby mat all belong within the room's sacred boundary. No elaborate furnishing is required. A hand, remembered words, and a pillow are enough. Prayer does not remove uncertainty from the cottage. It gives uncertainty a language. Fear that cannot be closed outside with timber can be spoken, entrusted, and brought to an ending before sleep. The final words fade. No one applauds the successful completion of bedtime. Someone still needs more coverlet. Someone else has not quite found a comfortable place for an arm. The individual gesture widens into a shared ritual. Its comfort comes partly from hearing other voices say what one person might struggle to hold alone. The coverlet rises. Several bodies move beneath it. Then prayer gives way to wool, straw, and familiar breathing. The wool descends across shoulders and legs. It catches for a moment against one sleeper, then is drawn further until the outer edge covers the person nearest the wall. Straw rustles beneath the linen. A hollow deepens under a hip. Someone shifts toward the center, leaving space along the edge. No invented conversation is needed to explain these motions. Shared sleepers learn one another through pressure and habit. The arrangement offers little privacy by modern standards. A restless turn travels through the mattress. A cough, a sigh, or a whispered prayer is heard. The coverlet records every attempt to pull it closer. Warmth cannot be shared without sharing movement as well. Even stillness is communal. One sleeper waits while another settles. A shoulder remains lifted until the wool can be tucked beneath it. Everyone occupies not only a place, but a relationship to the space around them. Yet that same closeness provides reassurance. A hand can find another person without leaving the bed. A younger or more anxious sleeper can hear steady breathing nearby. Someone waking from an unpleasant dream does not face a private, dark room. The household remains physically present. This does not make communal sleep perfectly harmonious. The human body has always possessed knees, elbows, and strong opinions about blankets. Medieval affection does not eliminate inconvenience. It simply places inconvenience beside protection. The bed holds familiar evidence of life. Weight at one side, warmth at another, the rhythm of breath near the pillow. In an uncertain season, those sensations may carry more comfort than silence in an empty chamber. During a plague season, that mixture becomes especially meaningful. The family cannot control the course of sickness beyond the cottage. It can keep familiar bodies close, place the more vulnerable nearer warmth, and repeat rituals everyone recognizes. The rose sachet rests near one pillow. Its scent mingles with the meadowsweet still hanging in the room. The vinegar sponge remains available, though no one needs to hold it constantly. The banked coals emit little light. The shutters seal the household inside its shared atmosphere. One sleeper settles on the advised side. Another takes whatever position the available space permits. A foot withdraws from a colder edge and finds warmth beneath the center of the wool. Concern has not vanished, but it no longer requires another task. The family has reached the point when more preparation would simply become continued wakefulness. Every available action has a natural end. The shutter latches, the ash settles, the sheet lies flat, prayer reaches its final words. The family has done what it can without remaining awake to watch the darkness. The crowded bed limits solitude, but it also keeps comfort within reach. That is its contradiction and its strength. Movement becomes less frequent. Linen warms, straw compresses. The broad coverlet rises by small degrees with several breaths, then falls again. First sleep begins not with a dramatic silence, but with the gradual end of decisions. The last hand releases the edge of the wool. The last shoulder finds a hollow in the palliasse. Straw gives one more dry answer, then stops. The hearth becomes the only changing light. Most of its heat remains hidden beneath ash, but a red seam appears when the covering shifts. It brightens slightly, then darkens without anyone touching it. The shutters hold. Cold air presses against their outer faces, while the hall preserves what warmth it can. Through the small gaps comes only the faintest draught, too slight to disturb the coverlet. Meadow sweet lingers above the bed. Its fragrance has blended with the cottage rather than replacing every other smell. Wool remains wool. Ash remains ash. The straw beneath the sheet carries its dry, enclosed scent. Together, they form the atmosphere in which the family rests. First sleep is the result of accumulated labor. Timber was secured, coals were banked, herbs were handled, straw was redistributed. Linen was spread, wool was shared, the pillow received its sachet and blessing. Bodies were placed close enough to make heat together. Now those acts continue without hands. The shutter blocks the broad opening. The ash slows the fire. The palliasse supports weight. The coverlet holds warmth near sleeping bodies. Prayer remains in memory, even after its words have ended. The bed slowly loses the order imposed on it at bedtime. Linen wrinkles beneath shoulders. The coverlet draws slightly toward the center. Straw compresses into fresh hollows. These are not failures in the preparation. They are signs that the materials are doing their work. No one in the hall is guaranteed safety. The family has not solved the plague outside its walls, yet the night does not require certainty before sleep can begin. It requires enough order for vigilance to loosen. A sleeper turns once. Straw stirs beneath the sheet, and another body shifts in response. The wool lifts, admits a small pocket of cooler air, and settles again. The rose sachet remains beside the pillow. It can be touched without waking fully. A cheek rests against linen warmed by the head. An arm lies where space allowed, rather than where a medical guide might prefer. The lower sleeping place remains within reach of the same hearth. Its occupant hears the same settling timber and breathes the same scented air. No wall creates a separate night there. The hall sleeps as one enclosure. Time passes without being counted. The first portion of the divided night deepens. The cottage no longer feels like a room recently prepared. It feels established in darkness, its objects holding their appointed places. Outside remains unknown and unseen. Inside, the family's world has narrowed to pressure, warmth, scent, and breathing. The deepest part of first sleep requires nothing from the household. A coal may shift beneath ash, a coverlet edge may loosen. The shutter may admit a hairline of cold. None of these small changes calls the sleepers back at once. The hearth dims further. One coal survives beneath the ash. First, sleep continues until awareness returns on its own, somewhere in the middle of the night. A sleeper opens his eyes without alarm. At first, there is no movement beyond the rise and fall of the coverlet. He hears breathing nearby, a small shift of straw, and perhaps the faint settling of timber as the cottage cools. A low red trace remains at the hearth. It is enough to show where the familiar room continues beyond the bed. This waking does not mean the night has gone wrong. It belongs between first and second sleep. The interval may last an hour or two, though no one needs to measure it precisely. The body has surfaced from one period of rest and has not yet entered the next. Awareness returns by degrees. First comes the pressure of the pillow and wool, then the cooler air against his face. Then the location of the hearth, barely visible beyond the bed. The room is reconstructed from familiar sensations before he moves. Others may remain asleep. One person's awareness does not summon the entire household. Another sleeper may open her eyes later, whisper a prayer, and settle again without leaving the wall. The wakeful man can remain still. The pressure of nearby bodies makes movement unnecessary. The linen is warm now, and the straw has shaped itself beneath the sleeping group. To rise would admit colder air beneath the coverlet. A familiar prayer can be repeated inwardly. Its words require no lamp and no new preparation. The sign made earlier above the pillow remains part of the sleeping place, and memory returns to it in darkness. Wakefulness carries less urgency when it has an accepted place. There is no need to fight it as though sleep must be forced back immediately. The man can listen to the room and allow thought to move at the pace of the banked coals. The interval does not need to be busy to be useful. It can hold a few remembered words, a change of position, and the knowledge that other sleepers remain nearby. It is a pause in which the household may be partly awake without returning to daytime. Fear may still enter. Pestilence has not disappeared because the family slept for several hours, yet fear is held within familiar surroundings. Another person lies within reach. The shutters remain secure. The herbal scent has not entirely faded. The sachet can be found near the pillow if wanted. The cloth under his fingers confirms that it was placed there. Its faint rose scent belongs to the room prepared before first sleep. It does not belong to a new or unexpected danger. The interval remains small. Someone adjusts the wool over a shoulder. Another sleeper makes a brief sound and becomes still. The wakeful man's eyes grow accustomed to the faint red near the hearth. There is one practical reason to leave the bed. The fire was banked with this middle hour in mind. The man moves carefully toward the edge, trying not to disturb the others. The coverlet is lifted only enough to release him. Cooler air reaches the space he leaves behind. His feet find the floor. The household's attention returns to the ash-covered coals. A hand reaches for the hearth tool. The movement is slow, partly from sleep and partly because no large fire is needed. The pale surface of ash looks almost unchanged from bedtime. When it is disturbed, a warmer red appears beneath. The coals have held through first sleep. That small discovery is enough. The man may draw the coals slightly together or expose them to a little air. Heat strengthens. A faint glow spreads along an edge that had been hidden. There is no need to build a tall flame or turn the waking interval into a second evening. Tending the coals is one accepted use of the space between sleeps. The divided night provides a natural moment to inspect what could not simply be ignored until morning. Other modest household needs might also be attended to, but the hearth requires only a brief action here. The earlier preparation proves its value. The fire survived because it was concealed. Ash that seemed to extinguish the coals preserved them instead. Domestic competence often depends on this kind of apparent contradiction. The tool uncovers no surprise. Red lies where experience suggested it would. The action is familiar enough to be carried out in near darkness, guided by the glow and the remembered shape of the hearth. The man feels returning warmth on his hands and face. Beyond it, the closed hall remains cold at its edges. The scent of meadowsweet is weaker now, but still present when the air moves. For a moment he stands between the banked fire and the shared bed. One holds heat in coal and wood, the other holds it in wool and bodies. Both have survived the first part of the night by keeping warmth gathered rather than exposed. The coals are not left open for long. Once their condition is known, ash is drawn back across them. Red disappears by degrees. The fire returns to its restrained nighttime form. Nothing dramatic has happened. That is the success of the task. No urgent labor wakes the family. No blaze leaps toward the bedding. The man has confirmed that warmth remains and has restored the hearth to safety. The tool is returned to its place. His feet cross the short distance toward the bed. From this angle, the shared coverlet appears uneven over several sleeping bodies. One place near the edge has been left open by the man who rose. The colder air makes that opening inviting. He returns quickly but carefully, lifting the wool only as much as necessary. Before lying down, a hand reaches near the pillow. It finds the small, familiar shape of the rose-leaf sachet and the coarse linen around it. The room is ready for the second half of its night. The sachet yields slightly when held. Dried leaves shift inside the cloth, releasing a trace of rose close to the face. There is no need to reconsider what the object can or cannot do. Its place in the ritual is already known. It offers a recognizable scent and a small action in the middle of uncertainty. The vinegar-dampened sponge remains near the sleeping place. Its sharper odor may be sought briefly, then set aside. The broader fragrance from the hearth has faded, making these personal scents more distinct for a moment. A hand smooths the linen. The pillow is adjusted. The wool waits, lifted by another sleeper's shoulder. The sign of the cross may be repeated above the sleeping place or made against the body. Prayer returns in shortened form. Bedtime has already been completed once, so the midnight gesture need not repeat every word. Familiarity carries it. The man prepares to lie down again. If advice about sleeping posture is remembered, this may be the time to turn from the right side toward the left. The clearest evidence for that counsel remains in medieval medical writing, and no universal obedience should be imagined. In a crowded bedroom often decides more than theory. Still, the thought of turning can belong among the household's small reassurances. Air has been scented, coals have been checked, prayer has been repeated. The body can be placed according to remembered advice, as far as the available space allows. These actions have limits, but limits do not make them meaningless. The family faces an uncertainty with no final answer. Repeated gestures reduce it to a finite sequence. Find the sachet. Settle the linen, make the cross, draw the wool close, lie down again. Each task ends. The second preparation is smaller than the first. No shutter needs closing, no mattress needs rebuilding. The room-wide work has already been done. Midnight requires only touch, memory, and a brief confirmation that the hearth still holds. The hand returns the rose leaves beside the pillow. A body lowers onto the palliasse. Straw presses into a new arrangement beneath the shoulder. Another sleeper shifts enough to make room. Shared warmth reaches the place that cooled while empty. The returning body brings a little cold beneath the coverlet, but the cold is absorbed. Wool settles, linen warms again. The interruption becomes part of the bed rather than a break in it. The final gesture passes without discussion. The coverlet is drawn over the returning figure, and the household approaches the second threshold of sleep. The returning sleeper lies among familiar bodies. The palliasse yields, then holds. Coarse linen touches the cheek, already warmer than it was at the beginning of the night. Wool settles over the open space. Its weight joins the sleeper to the rest of the bed. No further decision is required. The shutters were checked before first sleep and remain closed. The coals have survived and are banked once more. The sachet rests where a hand can find it. Prayer has been remembered. The cottage asks for nothing else. Second sleep arrives through the same materials as the first, but the feeling is different. The room is no longer newly arranged. It has been tested by several hours of darkness. Heat has endured beneath ash. The bedding has held the family. Waking came and passed without breaking the night. One person's breathing lengthens. Another turns toward the warmth gathered at the center. Straw makes a brief sound, then accepts the changed weight. The two-part rhythm nears completion. First, sleep carried the household away from evening. The wakeful interval brought one member toward the hearth and back. Second sleep now draws everyone toward the pale approach of morning. There is no need to name these stages aloud. The body knows only that wakefulness is loosening. A hand remains near the pillow. Feet find a warmer place beneath the wool. The outer edge of the bed is cooler, but the shared coverlet limits the difference. No new scent is added, no new prayer begins. Familiar traces are enough. The man who rose at midnight no longer listens for the fire. Its warmth was confirmed. Responsibility can be put down for a while. The other sleepers do not need to know that the coals were checked. They benefit from the action without waking for it. One person's brief labor allows the household to continue its shared rest. Thought narrows to the pressure of cloth, the uneven support of straw, and the presence of other sleepers nearby. Then even those sensations lose their edges. Second sleep is not an extra portion granted after the proper night. It completes the night's expected form. The coverlet becomes still again. Beneath it, the family rests within the arrangement made before sunset disappeared. The hall returns to observation without action. Shutters, herbs, pillow, wool, and ash hold their places in darkness. The sleeping family occupies the center of the hall. Around them stand the objects through which fear was given order. Closed shutters separate the room from damp night air. Herbs leave their fading fragrance near the bed. Ash hides living coals. Wool holds the warmth of several bodies. A remembered blessing remains attached to the pillow and sleeping place. None of these things forms a medical shield against plague. The family does not understand the disease through modern explanations, and its precautions cannot promise protection. Yet the preparations still reveal care. They show how ordinary people make an uncertain night inhabitable with the materials, beliefs, and relationships available to them. Timber creates a boundary. Fire provides moderated heat. Meadowsweet offers a scent understood as cleansing. Linen and straw support the body. Prayer protects in the language of faith. Closeness answers fear with the presence of other people. Each defense operates at a different distance. Shutters guard the edge of the room. Herbs alter the air within it. Linen and wool surround the body. A sachet waits beside the face. Prayer reaches beyond anything the hand can secure. Together they form one layered response to the night. The cottage is neither secure nor helpless. It occupies the human space between those conditions. Inside that space, second sleep continues. A sleeper turns beneath the coverlet, then rests against the warmth beside him. The rose sachet remains untouched near the pillow. The hearth gives no visible flame, though red survives below the ash. The family has not conquered the night. It has assembled a way to pass through it. The result is not silence without fear, but rest in spite of uncertainty. The family has used what it possesses: timber, ash, dried plants, cloth, remembered counsel, prayer, and one another. Warmth, scent, routine, and shared breathing make fear small enough to lie beside. The shutters hold their boundary until morning. No new task waits. No new object must be introduced. The room can remain exactly as it is while second sleep deepens and the first pale light gathers beyond the closed timber. The coals rest beneath pale ash. Their heat no longer asks for attention. It remains low in the hearth, contained within grey powder and the darker shapes below. There is no tall flame to move across the walls. Only buried red endures where no sleeper needs to watch it. The shutters remain closed. Beyond them, the night has begun its slow change. Within the hall, there is almost no sign of it. Timber covers the openings, and the latches remain in place. The boards hold back the wider darkness and keep the family inside the smaller world prepared before sleep. A faint line of cooler air finds a gap near one edge. It does not reach far. The broad wool coverlet keeps its warmth, and the bodies beneath it remain gathered close. Meadowsweet has become part of the room's background. Earlier, its scent entered clearly, replacing the ordinary air with something deliberate and reassuring. Now it lies among the smells of wool, straw, wood, ash, and linen. It is still there, though no one wakes to identify it. Near the pillow, the small rose-leaf sachet has not moved. Its cloth rests against rumpled linen. The dried petals inside have settled after being held during the wakeful interval. They offer only a faint fragrance unless pressed. No hand reaches for them now. The family is within second sleep. First sleep has passed. The quiet middle of the night has passed. The coals were uncovered and covered again. A prayer was remembered. A body returned to the bed and found its place beneath the wool. Nothing remains to be done. The palliasse supports the household with all its familiar unevenness. Straw has compressed beneath shoulders, hips, and legs. It holds the shapes made through the night. It presses upward in some places and yields in others. Above it, the coarse linen has lost its first coolness. It folds beneath a cheek. It draws tight under one shoulder and loosens near another. At the bed's edges, it gathers into small ridges that no sleeping hand bothers to smooth. The wool coverlet lies heavily over the family. Its surface rises above bent knees and falls into the spaces between sleepers. One edge has been tucked inward. Another reaches toward the colder side of the bed. The weight is shared, just as the warmth beneath it is shared. Breathing gives the cloth its only steady movement. Several rhythms overlap. One breath is deeper, another is shorter. Now and then a sleeper pauses, shifts, and settles into a slightly different position. The palliasse rustles once, then returns to silence. No one needs to know who moved. Closeness answers the small disturbance automatically. A shoulder gives way, a hand draws nearer to the body. Warmth gathers again where the coverlet lifted. The cottage holds these movements without enlarging them. A sleeper's hand lies not far from the pillow. Earlier, a hand passed there in the sign of the cross. The gesture has ended, but the sleeping place remains associated with it. Prayer does not need to be spoken continuously to remain part of the room. The remembered words are now beyond conscious thought. They rest with the sachet, the closed shutters, and the hidden coals. Each belongs to work already completed. The family sleeps inside that completed work. The hall had to be changed before anyone could rest. Daytime space became nighttime enclosure. The outside opening was covered. Fire was reduced. Bedding was arranged. Fragrance entered the air. Wool was drawn across several bodies. Now the work has become stillness. The hands that latched the timber lie beneath the coverlet. The hand that drew ash over the fire no longer holds the hearth tool. The fingers that crumbled meadowsweet and tested the palliasse are at rest. The same room keeps the traces of their work without asking them to continue it. Ash remains where it was placed. It looks cold at the surface. Beneath it, the last useful heat contracts slowly, no longer bright enough to color the room. The hearth has done what was asked of it. It carried warmth through first sleep, received brief attention in the interval, and now lasts into second sleep. The shutters continue their simple task. No hand checks the latch, no one listens at the boards. The family trusts the boundary until there is reason to rise. Outside air remains outside as far as timber can manage. Indoor warmth remains inside as far as wool, ash, and close sleeping can preserve it. The boards are dark from within. Their edges are only slightly less dark than their centers. The outside world has not yet entered as light, sound, or movement. It gathers beyond the timber and waits. The herbs continue to fade. Meadowsweet no longer announces preparation. It has become a trace. The rose leaves near the pillow hold a smaller trace within cloth. The vinegar's sharper smell has weakened where the sponge was set aside. The air is not empty, it is familiar. Straw, wool, linen, timber, ash. The remains of fragrance. These are the materials of the night. A sleeper turns from one side toward the other. The movement is unhurried and incomplete, shaped more by neighboring bodies than by any remembered rule. The shoulder settles, the coverlet lifts, then comes down. Another person does not wake. The shared bed contains movement without requiring a response. Its sleepers make space for one another, even while unconscious, through habits formed across many nights. One body settles into a hollow made earlier. Another shifts toward the warmth left behind. The straw accepts both movements with a low, dry sound. Then the hall is still again. The lower sleeping place near the hearth remains within the same enclosed room and beneath the same fading herbal air. No separate door divides one sleeper from another. The cottage holds everyone together. Second sleep continues. There is no clock to announce its progress. The banked fire weakens. The air near the shutters changes slightly. Darkness becomes less complete at the thinnest edges of the timber. The family does not yet see it. Closed eyelids and wool preserve the deeper night around the bed. A cheek rests on linen. Fingers remain loosely curved near the pillow. Feet stay tucked toward shared warmth. The rose sachet waits without being needed. The hand that found it earlier now lies still. The small object has already served its purpose during the interval. It offered texture, scent, and a familiar place to return attention. Now it is simply part of the bedding. The prayer has also reached silence. No voice repeats it. No hand moves above the pillow. The blessing remains remembered rather than performed. Breath continues beneath the wool. The coverlet rises. A coverlet falls. The ash remains pale. The shutter remains closed. The cottage approaches morning without a new ritual. Pale light gathers beyond the shutters, too faint to form a beam and too weak to open the room. It appears only as a soft reduction in darkness around the boards. The grey at the edges does not yet reveal the sleeping faces clearly. It touches the outline of the bed, the fold of the coverlet, and the shape of the hearth. Familiar objects emerge without becoming bright. The ash-covered coals are darker now. One small area still holds red beneath grey, but even that color is difficult to see. The family remains warm enough beneath wool and beside one another. A sleeper shifts near the center of the bed. Straw answers with a low rustle. Linen draws across the palliasse. The coverlet moves from one shoulder and is pulled back without anyone fully waking. The room settles once more. The faint light remains around the timber edges. It does not cross the floor, it does not touch the pillow. It only tells the enclosed hall that night is thinning beyond the shutters. No sleeper responds. The wool keeps the warmth gathered. The linen keeps its folds. The sachet keeps the last trace of rose. The ash keeps what little heat remains. First sleep is complete. The wakeful interval is complete. Second sleep is beginning to loosen at its farthest edge, though no one has yet risen. The shutters stay closed. The herbs remain faint. The wool remains heavy. The family remains gathered close. There is no sharp boundary between sleeping and waking. One hand moves, then rests. One breath changes and becomes steady again. A shoulder turns toward the center. Morning waits on the other side of the timber. while the cottage keeps the last portion of night around its sleepers. At the edge of dawn, the hall remains enclosed. Pale light gathers around the wooden shutters, outlining the places where the boards do not quite meet the frame. The latch is still settled. No hand has reached for it. At the hearth, ash covers the last red coals. Their warmth is nearly hidden, as it has been for most of the night. The scent of meadowsweet has faded into timber, wool, and straw. Near the pillow lies the rose-leaf sachet, its small cloth shape resting beside rumpled, coarse linen. The broad coverlet remains over the family. It rises across several sleeping forms and falls toward the edge of the timber bed. Beneath the sheet, the straw palliasse holds impressions left by first sleep, midnight waking, and second sleep. One hand shifts near the pillow. Fingers brush the linen, then become still. No one rises. The shutter does not open. The fire is not disturbed. Second sleep loosens slowly. The family remains gathered within the warmth it has made together. The room is dim, shared, and familiar. Morning has reached the cottage only as pale softness around closed timber. For another moment, the ash, herbs, linen, and wool remain exactly where the night has left them. Everything holds. The light beyond the shutters grows a little clearer. Inside, the wool stays drawn over the bed. The linen remains warm. Straw supports the final stillness of the night. A sleeper turns towards the center. Another breath follows. The sachet rests beside the pillow. Its rose leaves are quiet within the cloth. The herbs near the hearth have given almost all their scent to the room. Ash lies over the coals. Timber stands between the family and the morning air. The room does not hurry toward daylight. The coverlet rises and falls. A hand remains near the pillow. The last warmth stays hidden beneath the ash. The family remains inside second, sleep close beneath the wool. The fears carried into the cottage at sunset have not vanished. For these last moments, they ask nothing more. There is only the weight of the coverlet, the faint smell of herbs, the coarse linen beneath a resting cheek, the straw holding the shapes of the sleepers, the pale edge of morning around the shutters, and the shared bed holding the family together as the long night comes to its end. No one speaks. No latch moves. No new task begins. Beyond the boards, daylight gathers. Within them, the wool remains warm. The ash lies undisturbed. The family rests beside familiar breathing. The cottage remains quiet around its sleepers.